Our hero, Marcus King, decides to tell us a little bit about his life, but it doesn't sound like he's having a good time right now. He goes about his normal day at work and explains that it wasn't always like this for him. He meets his buddy Dennis, who asks him if he has any plans for the weekend, but he simply replies by saying his hours aren't regular. On top of that, he also has a friend's mom's birthday to attend, so it's clear that fun isn't on the cards as of right now. We learn that Marcus has all the essentials of life, but he doesn't have a family, and it looks like he's simply surviving the world rather than living in it. Suddenly, his boss shows up with a pile of paper and asks him to check it for any errors. Marcus clearly doesn't want to do this because he knows he's going to find a lot of errors in this pile, but he accepts the task regardless and is ordered to submit his findings on the boss's table. Our hero slams his head onto his desk and says that he just wants to die. The clock keeps ticking, and the office gets empty, but Marcus stays behind so that he can complete the task given to him. With the moon glowing bright, our hero is done with his work, but laments his lazy boss. He goes back home, takes a shower, and switches on his TV to live the daily life of a modern nobody. Marcus thinks about how he might finally get some time to chill with his friends on his day off, but these thoughts come to a halt when his villainous boss gives him a call even this late at night. He picks it up, and as expected, the boss asks Marcus if he can come to the office on his day off in order to complete more work. Even though every nerve in his body wants to say no, our hero ends up agreeing to his slave routine and hangs up the phone, disappointed in himself more than anyone else. As he angrily stares at the TV, Marcus thinks about quitting his job so that he can finally get a life. But then his program gets interrupted by an emergency broadcast where a blonde news reporter begins her coverage live from Times Square. She mentions a demonic circle that starts burning behind her, and then it suddenly comes to life with a rumbling appearance. In no time, the road cracks open and takes in a few victims in a devastating scene. Suddenly, a demon lord climbs out of the road looking like an ominous sign of the times to come. This is a bit too much for everyone to handle, but the demon lord doesn't seem to have any issues in making an announcement to the world. He introduces himself as General Claxus and says that this world is going to be taken in the name of Satan. The demon lord also states that he is going to summon his demon army which will conquer the world and make everyone a slave of hell. Marcus watches the news with intent as he believes that this is just a movie. But that doesn't seem to be the case as Claxus decides to awaken some of his soldiers. All of a sudden, our hero feels a spike in his tummy and starts rolling on the floor, crying in pain. He's not able to understand why he's feeling this way without any reason, and then he lets out a scream of anguish as he begins a horrific transformation. Marcus goes from loser boy to overpowered demon hybrid in a matter of seconds as his entire body turns into a monstrous entity. He takes a moment to look at his new body, which resembles that of a dragon and a frog hybrid beast. He looks around his area and sniffs the wooden floor, which he instinctively rips out with the power of his teeth. After that, he continues to use his nose to sniff his way into the kitchen where he breaks through the cupboards to get his hands on some tasty food. An interesting session follows, as Demon Marcus isn't shown to be having any kind of independent consciousness, and then he finally makes his way to the fridge, which he rips open without a second thought. Suddenly, Marcus's friend, named Tim, knocks on the door and asks our hero if he's alright, especially after all the crazy stuff happening outside with the Demon Lord and his evil prophecy. Tim makes his way into the house and is shocked to see the mess Marcus has created, but it only gets worse when he sees his buddy in his demon frog form. It appears as if Marcus is no longer in control of this body, as the demon frog refers to himself as Jethun and proceeds to attack Tim, who is paralyzed out of fear. It only takes a couple of seconds for the frog demon to eat up Tim as if he's a breakfast sausage, but Jethun continues to feel hungry and decides to go out of his house for another appetizer. A horrific sequence follows as the demon frog forces his way into an innocent neighbor's house and eats up the people hiding there out of fear. This also doesn't seem to do the trick for the demon's tummy, so he crawls out of the building and poses on the roof to establish dominance. What he sees in front of him is a city burning in hell with no means of salvation. Realizing the need to mark his own presence, Jethun takes a deep breath and goes on to release a giant roar in front of the city. He seems to generate shockwaves that spread through all the buildings and even alert the flying demons nearby. They visit the demon frog and refer to him as their lieutenant, hinting that he is one of the higher authorities in hell. Jethun simply says that he wants to be taken to more food, so the flying demons carry him and obey their instructions. However, in the middle of all this chaos, a mysterious force comes to the scene and attacks the flying demons, thus cutting off Jethun from his mode of transport. The demon frog falls to the road and smashes himself against the rubble, after which we learn that the mysterious force is actually a giant hammer which is being operated by a demon bull man. The demon bull makes an open declaration stating that he is to become the next lieutenant, because Jithun isn't fit for the role anymore. However, the demon frog rises from the rubble and mocks the demon bull because he thinks that Klaxus is simply afraid of him, and that's why he's sent his slave to come fight him. The demon bull doesn't take too kindly to these words, so he challenges Jithun to a fight, and then the demon beasts get into an intense battle. Jithun starts off by charging at his opponent, but he's stopped immediately and slammed to the ground. It appears as if Jithun is down and out for the count in just one blow, but the demon bull doesn't want to take any half chances, so he lands a finisher blow with his mighty hammer and finishes off the demon frog with epic style. He walks away from the battleground, but laments that Jithun has grown weak, which is why he ended up losing the fight. The scene shifts to black, and we can hear Marcus's voice again, as he wonders whether he's alive or dead at this point. He starts to feel all kinds of sensations such as taste and smell, but what alerts him the most is the sound of a girl crying, so he follows the noise, hoping to find the victim. It turns out that Marcus is still inside Jithun, who has revived himself and is now going towards a little girl so that he can eat her up as his next meal. Our hero doesn't approve of this behavior, so he tries his best to stop the demon frog by shouting at him. He requests his counterpart not to attack the innocent girl, and after a few unsuccessful attempts, he finally gets Jithun to hear what he's saying. The demon frog is surprised to hear this sound, so he looks around and asks who's calling out to him. Now, both the alter egos finally see each other for the first time in a parallel dimension. Marcus scolds Jithun for being selfish and tells him not to eat any humans because they're not food. The demon frog seems to have a different opinion, and even tells our hero to go away because this body is now his. However, Marcus doesn't give up so easily, and asks Jithun if anyone has ever helped him before. This seemingly makes the demon frog docile, and then he shrinks into a smaller version of his body. Our hero then witnesses one of Jithun's painful memories where he was bullied by a couple of demons who thought of him as a worthless spawn of the devil himself. It's actually a tragic sequence as we see the demon frog getting beaten up while crying like an innocent puppy. Marcus is saddened to see such a horrible sight, but then he hears a familiar voice which asks Jithun if he would like to have some food. Marcus is unable to place this voice with anyone he knows, but he has to focus on Jithun, so he tries to appeal to the demon's humanity. He states that everyone is vulnerable and needs some kind of support, so it isn't necessary to be a bad person to compensate for the trauma. Now, we move back to the burning city where the innocent girl is about to get crushed by a falling piece of rubble, but then someone protects her from it. To her surprise, it's none other than Jithun himself, who is holding off the rubble, and he even asks the girl if she is hurt. Marcus acts as a guiding force for Jithun, and he instructs him to help the girl find a place to rest. The demon frog does as he's told, and offers the girl his hand. She accepts Jithun as her new guide, so she accepts his hand and gets on top of his back. With their trust accomplished, the demon frog and the little girl become buddies, and then they set off on their new adventure with Marcus also conscious in the background. That's the end of part 1. Like, share, and subscribe for part 2. I'll see you soon.